Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2024, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 77 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellness. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's sessions. Today, we are commemorating International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearance, and also yesterday, as we couldn't celebrate, yesterday was commemorated as International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances, and yesterday was International Day Against Nuclear Tests on 29th August, and many more. We'll first look at today's commemorations, then we'll go back to yesterday's commemorations. So today, we are commemorating International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances on 30th August every year. The theme, more than a human rights violation against an individual, enforced disappearance has frequently been used as a strategy to spread terror within the society. The feeling of insecurity generated by this practice is not limited to the close relatives of the disappeared, but also affects their communities and society as a whole. Enforced disappearances has become a global problem, and that is not restricted to a specific region of this world. Once largely the product of military dictatorship, enforced disappearances can nowadays be perpetrated in complex situations. Of internal conflict, especially as a means of political repression of opponents of particular concern. The ongoing harassment of human rights defenders, relatives of victims, witness, and legal counsel dealing with the cases of enforced disappearance, the use of states of counter-terrorist activities as an excuse for breaching their obligations, and still widespread impunity for enforced disappearance. Special attention must also be paid to specific groups of especially vulnerable people like children and people with disabilities. Hundreds of thousands of people have vanished during conflicts or periods of repression in at least 85 countries around the world. So who are affected? The victims themselves, friends and families of victims. The victims are frequently tortured and in constant fear of their lives. They are well aware that their families do not know what has become of them and that the chances are slim that anyone will come to their aid. Having been removed from the protective basin of the law and disappeared from society, they are in fact deprived of all rights and are at the mercy of their captors. Even if death is not the final outcome and the victim is eventually released from the nightmare, the physical and psychological scars of this form of dehumanization and the brutality and torture which often accompany it remain. Friends and families of the victim experience slow mental anguish, not knowing whether the victim is still alive, and if so, where he or she is being held, under what condition, and in what state of health. They alternate between hope and despair, wandering and waiting, sometimes for years, the news that may never come. In addition, they are well aware that they too are threatened, that they may suffer the same fate themselves, and that searching for the truth may expose them to even greater danger. The family's distress is frequently compounded by material consequences of the disappearance. The disappeared person is often the family's main breadwinner. He or she may be the only member of the family able to cultivate the crops or run the family business. The emotional upheaval is thus exacerbated by material deprivation, made more acute by the costs incurred. They should decide to undertake a search. Furthermore, they do not know when, if ever, their loved ones is going to return, which makes it difficult for them to adapt to the new situation. In some cases, national legislation may make it possible to draw a person or receive other news of support and other means of support in the absence of a death certificate. Economic and social marginalization is frequently the result. The serious economic hardships which usually accompany the disappearance are most often borne by women, and it is women who are the most often at the forefront of the struggle to resolve the disappearance of family members in the capacity they may suffer intimidation, persecution, and reprisals. When women are themselves direct victims of disappearance, they become particularly vulnerable to sexual and other forms of violence. Children can be victims both directly and indirectly. The disappearance of a child is a clear contravention to a number of provisions of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, including the right of personal identity. The loss of parent through disappearance is also a serious violation of a child's human rights. Communities are directly affected by the disappearance of breadwinners and the degradation of the family's economic situation and their social marginalization. Enforced disappearance has frequently been used as a strategy to spread terror within the society. The feeling of insecurity generated by the practice is not limited to the close relatives of the disappeared, but also affects their communities and society as a whole. According to the Declaration on the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances, proclaimed by the General Assembly in its Resolution 47 by 133 of 18 December 1992, as a body of principles for all states, an enforced disappearance occurs when persons are arrested, detained, or abducted against their will or otherwise deprived of their liberty by officials of different branches or levels of government or by organized groups or private individuals acting on behalf or with the support, direct or indirect, consent or acquiescence of the government, followed by a refusal to disclose the fate or whereabouts of the person concerned, or a refusal to acknowledge the deprivation of the liberty, which places such persons outside the protection of the law. Having been removed from the protective presence of the law and disappeared from the society, victims enforced disappearance are in fact deprived of all their rights and are at the mercy of their captors. Some of the human rights that enforce disappearance regularly violate are the right to recognition as a person before the law, the right to liberty and security of the person, the right not to be subjected to torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the right to life when disappeared person. The right to liberty and security of the person, the right not to be subjected to torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, the right to life when the disappeared person is killed, the right to an identity, the right to a fair trial under judicial guarantees, the right to an effective remedy, including reparation and compensation, the right to know the truth regarding the circumstances of the disappearance. So, enforced disappearances are also generally violating various economic, social, and cultural rights for both the victims as well as their families. The right to protection and assistance to the family, the right to an adequate standard of living, the right to health, and right to education. Both the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, which came into force on 1st July 2002, and the International So on 21st December 2010, by its resolution 65 by 209, the UN General Assembly expressed its deep concern about the increase in enforced involuntary disappearances in various regions of the world, including arrest, detention, and abduction, when these are part of an amount of enforced disappearances, and by the growing numbers of reports concerning harassment, ill treatment, by the same resolution of the Assembly, welcome to adoption of International Convention for Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance and decided to declare 30th August the International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances to be observed beginning in 2011. Today is also commemorated as International Whale Shark Day, which celebrates white sharks, whale sharks and their epicness. The Humogenous fish happens to be the largest shark species on the planet, growing as much as 60 feet from the time of its birth. The whale shark is known for its slow and gentle behavior. The whale shark is known for its slow and gentle behavior. It usually prefers to swim in shallow depths, but it is also found in waters as deep as 3,000 feet. Due to such factors, whale sharks are extremely easy to fish. People have been using them for their meat and fins. The whale shark market has led to at least a 50% decrease in the fish population. This is an alarming situation, and the giant has now been placed on the endangered species list. The declining numbers also mean that the general marine environment is in danger to go. The International Whale Shark Day was first commemorated in 2008 at the International Whale Shark Conference in Isla Holbox. The conference hosted 40 ocean experts, activists, and scientists who had a concern for the whale shark declining population. While said sharks have been around for more than 242 to 60 million years, it wasn't until the 1820 that the whale shark was first discovered off the coast of South Africa. So it wasn't until 1820s that the whale shark was first discovered off the coast of South Africa. Dr. Andrew Smith rightfully described the fish as the largest shark to exist on Earth. Despite their enormous size and the fact that their smaller cousins can prove to be more hostile, the whale sharks are known to have gentle. The beautiful giant creatures who also have unique patterns of dots and lines on their skin are hard to locate. They have been around since the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, but it is reported that before the 1980s, they were ruled. Often, one of the biggest enemies of whale sharks, or any marine creature for that matter, is plastic pollution. Even though they have the word whale in their names, the only reason they know as whale sharks is because of their gigantic size. Whale sharks do not have sharp and long teeth. That is why it is only possible for them to swallow their food, like shrimps, fish, and plankton. Whale can live up to 150 years provided they survive to that age, as more than 90% of all whale sharks are killed before they reach the 150-year mark. Whale sharks are slow swimmers and the highest speed they can reach is 3.1 miles per hour. Unlike whales, whale sharks do not stay with their younglings after the birth. It's a celebration of whale sharks and long history and ecosystem. Whale sharks are some of the gentlest creatures in nature out there. Today, it is on 29th August, yesterday, is also commemorated as International Day Against Nuclear Tests. Since nuclear weapons testing began on 16 July 1945, over 2,000 have taken place. In the early days of nuclear testing, little consideration was given to its devastation effects on human life and the allure of the nuclear fallout from atmosphere tests. On 2nd December 2009, the 64th session of the United Nations General Assembly declared 29th August the International Day against nuclear tests by unanimously adopting Resolution 64/35. The resolution calls for increasing awareness and education about the effects of nuclear weapon test explosions or any other nuclear explosions and the need for their cessation as one of the means of achieving the goal of a nuclear weapon free world. The resolution was initiated by the Republic of Kazakhstan together with a large number of sponsors and co-sponsors with the view of commemorating the closure of the semi-planned nuclear tests in site on 29th August 1990. 2010 marked the 2016 marked the inaugural commemoration of the International Day Against Nuclear Tests. In each subsequent year, the day has been observed by coordinating various activities throughout the world, such as symposia, conference, exhibits, competitions, publications, lectures, media broadcasts, and other initiatives. Since its establishment, many bilateral and multilateral government level developments, as well as broad movements, civil society have helped to advance in case of banning, in cause of banning nuclear tests. Moreover, convinced that nuclear disarmament and the total elimination of nuclear weapons are the only absolute guarantee against the use of threats or nuclear weapons. The General Assembly designated 26 September as International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons, which is divided devoted to furthering the objective of the total elimination of nuclear weapons through the mobilization of international efforts. The International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons was observed for the first time in September 2014. The International Day Against Nuclear Tests, together with other events and actions, has fostered a global environment that strongly advocates for a world free of nuclear weapons. The international instrument to put an end to all forms of nuclear testing in the 1996 Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, unfortunately, has yet to enter into force. Every effort needs to be made to ensure the entry into force of the CTBT and to preserve its place in international architecture. In this regard, the Secretary General appeals to all remaining states whose ratifications are required for the CTBT to enter into force to commit to sign the treaty and an early date if they have not already done so, and to accelerate the completion of other ratification progress. It is the hope of the UN that one day all nuclear weapons will be eliminated. Until then, there is a need to observe International Day Against Nuclear Tests as the world works towards promoting peace and security. So today, we are also commemorating one more commemoration, that is Telugu Language Day, which was celebrated yesterday as Telugu Bhasha Dinotsavam, a day of the Telugu language, which is observed on 29th August in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana. The date was chosen to coincide the birthday of Telugu poet Gidugu Venkata Ramamurthy. The government of Andhra Pradesh provides funds and presents awards with the objective of betterment of the Telugu language. The Department of Culture is responsible for organizing the day on behalf of government. Gidugu Venkata Ramamurthy was born at Parvatalapeta, Srikakulam, near Vamshadhara River on the border of Orissa, then part of Madras Presidency. His father, Veeraraju, worked as revenue inspector and died when Ramamurthy was just 12 years old. It was a struggle for him to survive. He studied privately and passed his matriculation, staying in his sister's house, and began his life as a teacher in Gajapati Maharaja School, Parlakamundi, for 55 years. Albeit being a historian as well, Ramamurthy was unable to read sasanas on stone tablets clearly. To understand them, he studied books that were imported by Vijayanagara Maharaja's son, Kumara Raja. He studied various language scripts, and after deciphering the sasanas, he wrote books on language and scripts. Ramamurthy had studied many languages and comprehended the philosophy of language. He pleaded for lucidity in textbooks. In his time, there was only a poetic approach and never was a prosaic creed. He launched a monthly title, Telugu, to drive his point. Gidugu gave a social base to Telugu literature and rendered services to the tribals, especially to the Savaras in Parlakmedi area of Srikakulam agency area, and tirelessly worked for the development of tribal languages. He gave the Savara language a script and prepared lexicons. During his research for Savara language, he had to travel in the forest, resulting in excessive use of quinine, due to which he became deaf. The language of the sasanas, inscriptions, the language loaded with Sanskrit diction of the kavyas, and the language spoken every day were not the same. For many of the Telugu speakers themselves, Kavya Bhasha is mostly incomprehensible. The Grandhika Bhasha, which is also known as written language, then taught in schools and colleges to promote the skills necessary either for understanding or communicating effectively in real life situations. So, the development of people depends on their language skills. When scholarship is limited to the creamy layers of the society because of the difficulty in learning language, the rest of the society is denied access and opportunity for the development. Gidugu was an eminent language visionary. As a pedagogue, he was decades ahead of his time. He recognized the primacy of oracy and the efficiency of the by now accepted direct method of language teaching. For teaching Telugu, he wanted the spoken language to be the medium of instruction. This engulfed him in a war with the orthodox Sanskrit educated pundits, which sometimes turned vitriolic. Due to Gidugu's tenacity and commitment, Shishta Vyavaharika, that is standard, current, and spoken language, gained currency and acceptance. To drive home his pedagogic, literary, humanistic, and modernizing thoughts, Gidugu boldly, untiringly, and persuasively used the press, publications, the public platform, social discourse, and even pamphleteering, never once losing the cool and objectivity in argument. Between 1910 and 1914, he went about asking, arguing, convincing, making rapid studies, even in the face of stiff opposition. Balaka Visaranyam, Gadya Chintamani, Andhra Pandita Bishakula, Bhasha Beshajam, and Vyasavali are his efforts to convince and plead with the opponents to see the reason Ramamurthy saw in his own face of in his own lifetime, people seeing his point and rallying around him. Kandukuri Veerashalingam Pantulu founded Vartamana Vyavaharikandra Bhasha Parivartaka Samajam as its president endorsed Gidgu's views. Andhra Sahitya Parshad Kakinada withdrew from the fight in 1924. In 1933, Abhinava Andhra Kavi Pandita Sabha, under the chairmanship of Chilpuri Narayan Rao Pantulu, resolved that modern Vyavaharika must be the medium of instruction. In 1936, a journal was started publishing articles in the current cultivated Telugu. In 1937, Tapi Dharma Rao started a periodical in this style. The government and the universities had to listen to reason. Today, the cultivated current Telugu is the medium of instruction, of examination, and even thesis writing. The British government conferred on him the title of Rao Sahib, not for the loyalty to the crown, but for his service to the Savaras, to pedagogy, and to Telugu. The British government conferred on him the title Kaisari Hind Medal on him in the year of 1933 for his services. The Telugu Language Day is celebrated on his birthday, 29th August, every year. Nicknamed as Pidugu, a thunderbolt, rhyming with his surname, Gidugu. European linguistics like Jules Bloch and Daniel Jones recognize his work on Munda linguistics as pioneering and original. A number of scholars, linguists, and teachers have discussed Gidugu's work and written about his achievements. Most important among them are Telugu Bhasha Charitra, edited by Professor B.H. Krishnamurthy, who is also a great linguist and founder of Department of Linguistics, Usmania University, and Vyavaharika Bhasha Vikasam by Dr. Budharaju Radhakrishna, Marosari Gidugu Ramamurthy, edited by Professor C. Ramarao, late Burra Sheshagiri Rao of Bharati Tirtha fame, David Stampy and J. Yates are among many others who recorded their admiration for Gidugu's work. Stanley Stratosa, well-known linguist and the professor of the University of Hawaii, dedicated his PhD thesis submitted to the Wisconsin to Gidugu Venkata Ramamurthy. Gidugu Ramamurthy, Jeevitam Rachanalu, Gidugu Ramamurthy's life story by Professor Dr. Dasharathulla Narsaya are various research works on Gidugu's work. So it's all our responsibility to protect the languages, especially our mother tongue language and endangered and less known languages. So with this, we shall conclude today's commemorations. Thank you everyone for joining us for these celebrations. See you all tomorrow. Before leaving, quickly fill up the feedback form that has been raised in the form of polls. Take care. Good night.